Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I'm answering your homeschool questions. So this question is a really great one. Well, actually, they're all really great ones. This one is, how do you juggle a busy schedule of out-of-the-house activities like sports or social engagements, lessons, and creative time while protecting free, unscheduled time? And I'm really glad that you recognize how important unscheduled free time is in your day, especially for young children. That's where a lot of their learning comes from, especially when they're young. A lot of their open-ended playtime is so important for them. Okay, so how do you manage it all together? I'm going to assume that you have more than one child, and I'm going to assume that you're also managing a lot of other obligations. Either it could be a part-time job, it could be aspects of home management, it could be caring for a family member, young children. Like, I'm going to assume that there's a lot going on in your life other than just parenting. I don't mean to say other than just parenting. I mean other than parenting and homeschooling. This is a really great question because what we tend to forget in this whole equation is ourselves. And I know that I did this for many years where I was so consumed. Oh goodness, I was such in the trenches of motherhood and homeschooling that I really forgot and lost sight of me for many years. Now, even though I was told so often that you need, me time and decompression time, which I would take when the children were asleep. I loved like a little quiet time in the morning or the evening. But honestly, I probably needed more of it, and I want to encourage you to recognize what you need in this whole process, because having this full of a schedule is going to be hard to maintain long term if we ourselves are not being maintained in whatever capacity, either health, mental well-being, social well-being, whatever it is, we need to maintain ourselves in this whole process. Okay, so how do we do that, and how do we manage fitting everything in? Well, for me, I'll tell you that for me, it's really hard to say no to a great opportunity. And considering how much is going on in your life, I'm going to assume that it's really hard for you to say no also. So I learned from my friend who learned from someone else that you have to say no to the good to say yes to the great. And I'm probably paraphrasing that a little bit different than the way it's supposed to be meant to be said. But it's really easy to say no to the things that you shouldn't be doing. Well, at least I think it's a lot easier to say no to the things that you shouldn't be doing or that you don't want to do. But it's really hard to say no to the things that you do want to do, especially if you think they're really great, especially if all of your children's friends are going to be participating in a particular activity and you really want to say yes to that. However, if you say yes to everything, you're just not going to have literally the time to do everything, and you're probably going to get burnt out or cranky a lot sooner than if you managed your time and your schedule a little bit better. So saying no to things that are really great. Did I say that right? You have to say no to the great, or say no to the good to say yes to the great. You're going to have to say no to some really good opportunities in order to say yes to the really best opportunities for you. Okay, so how does this look practically? So for me, I'll give you an example, and this is really silly and maybe not even relevant in a way, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So one day, actually often, when I only just had the one child, maybe I had two, and we would be at the park, for instance, and we'd be at the park for an hour, maybe two, and then I'd say, okay, it's time to leave, and my son would not want to leave. I'm like, okay, well then we'll stay longer. It makes no difference to me. It was arbitrary to leave at a particular time. The only times that I would be more particular about leaving is if we needed to do something else, or I wanted to leave the park before dark, things like that. I'd be a little bit more particular about my choices, my wants in that moment versus my child's wants. But there were often times where we would be at the park, I'm thinking, well, it's probably a good time to go, but he wasn't ready to go, so we would give him more time. I wasn't so particular about that. So what does this mean about all of the other activities that are in your life? It means that if you are planning something for your child, maybe it's an outdoor activity, maybe it's something social, maybe it's an outdoor class, we may assume that they're really, really wanting to do that. And maybe if you had the option, like, would you like to go horseback riding or take this robotics class? This semester we only have the opportunity for one. You might have a child that's like, well, actually, I really do want to do both, but I really want to do horseback riding more. Or you might have that child saying, no, both of these are really high priorities for me at the moment, which means that you're going to have to let other things go. It might even mean for a season that one child gets the priority of outdoor classes and social activities versus one of your other children. Sometimes that happens, but in the long run, it does even out. I would hope that it evens out for you too, that your children are all getting a nice assortment of activities, but for a season, it's okay if one particular child does have or needs more activities in a particular area or for whatever personal reason. So what I'm saying is that you might be very attached to something, or your child might be very attached to something, or you might not realize that there is room for flexibility in that activity. Okay, so your child has been doing soccer for 3 years and you're thinking you're going to do it again for the 4th year, but there are all these other things that you also want to include, and now there comes a time for some hard choices where you didn't even realize that your child was, I'm actually kind of done with soccer, and I was just doing it because that's what we were just all doing together, and that was just something that was, maybe he didn't even realize that there was a choice in that. Having a sit-down opportunity to communicate with your children all of the activities that are going on so that you can now pick the ones that are the most important or that your child or you are the most fond of. Okay, so that's the activities. One thing that I never want to restrict in a way is anything in nature, outdoor play, open-ended play, even times with friends. All of those things for me are quite a priority, especially when my children are young. So those kinds of things, they can fit into your open-ended creative time for sure, probably a little bit better than some of your classes. At the end of the day, some choices are going to have to be made, and the way that you can make your choices best is by evaluating your priorities and your values. So for me, I'm really clear on some of my values when it comes to homeschooling and parenting, and it makes it very easy for me to prioritize and say yes and no to activities. For me, I prioritize open-ended play and time with friends and time outdoors, like the most. Like that is the most. If it's going to be something open-ended play outdoors with friends, that's going to be a very easy yes. If it's going to be just one of those, now it's going to be a maybe. And if it's not going to include any of those, then it's going to be pretty easy to say no if there are other opportunities to do things that are more in line with my priorities and my values. I hope this was helpful. If you have any clarification on the question or if you need more, please let me know in the comment section below.